No, church, we are the authority on who Jesus is. We take it from the Bible. But yet, you know what? Your website doesn't indicate that. Your preaching does, but your website doesn't. That's organic traffic. When you can take all those marriage, parenting, addictions, grief, counseling, faith, all kinds of felt need traffic and topics, you can actually optimize your website so it can be found organically. And it takes some work, but once you do it, it's the gift that keeps on giving, because traffic will just start coming over and over and over again.
Hey, welcome to the Missional Marketing Podcast. Bart Blair and Jason Hamrock, your hosts here today. We want to thank you for tuning in. We have a really cool conversation for you. Jason, we've been talking a lot with a lot of churches about new traffic on their websites, new visitors on their website. Because here's the deal. Every church is looking for new people in their church building. Would you say that's a true statement?
I'd say that's a very true statement.
Okay. I haven't talked to any pastor ever who isn't interested in new people coming through the front doors of their church building.
That's right.
Now, we recognize that most new people are probably going to come to the website before they ever come through the front door of the church building. Do you think that's a true statement?
That's 100% true.
Okay. So I want to pick your brain today on how churches can get more new visitors to their website, which will hopefully lead to more new visitors visiting their actual physical worship locations. Okay. Yeah. So we did our last podcast, the last one that we did, we talked about the three things that Google loves in a church website: speed, security, and crawlability. Mm-hmm. And I cherry picked that out of content that we talked about in those lunch and learn events that we used to do. And the 4 points that we're going to talk about in this podcast episode today are also kind of cherry picked from that content that we used to share with churches in those lunch and learn events. So if you've got a brown bag lunch, if you're ready to eat, pick up your lunch. You can eat while you listen to these 4 points that Jason is going to expound upon. Okay. Ready? Yep. Jason, you ready to get into this?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Okay. All right, here we go. 4 ways to get more new visitors to your church website. Jason, let's talk about organic traffic. Explain what it is and how a church can use organic traffic to get more new visitors to their website.
Well, the reality is organic is that gift that keeps on giving. And the idea there is that you want to optimize your website so that Google sees you as an authority on some kind of a subject matter, and that's how you grow up to page 1 of Google. And that's organic traffic, because people are searching Google all the time. Why do we talk about Google? Because Google owns 92% of the market share. So you kind of want to follow the rules of optimizing your website when it comes to Google, because there's so many people searching. And so I just got off a call with the church. We were talking about, they have a page that says, you meet Jesus, right? Hey, church, if you don't have a page on your website that actually introduces somebody to who Jesus is and how to follow him, you might want to hit the pause and go work on that right now. I'm always amazed how many churches I look at their website, look at their nav bar. There's nothing about Jesus on their website. Yes, I said that correct. There's nothing about Jesus. They preach about him on sermons, but there's not a page dedicated. Imagine if somebody was Googling like, who is Jesus or what's he all about? And they stumbled organically on your page where you actually walked them through the gospel. And then they said yes to Jesus. How cool would that be? That's organic. The only way that Google's going to see that you're an authority on who Jesus is if you actually have content on your website. I always make this example. You talk about the luncheons. I always show this example. If you Google like, who is Jesus? You might, it's been a while since I've done this, but I always had Rolling Stone magazine on page 1 above the fold. Yes, Rolling Stone magazine. Why was Rolling Stone magazine on there? It's because they wrote an article about Jesus. They did. And it's a magazine, so they have really high rank authority. And so they were talking about who Jesus is, and it wasn't from the biblical standpoint. It was from the worldly standpoint. Right? So if somebody doesn't really know any different, like Rolling Stone, that's kind of a cool magazine. I think I'll learn about Jesus there. I cringe, right?
Yeah.
No, church, we are the authority on who Jesus is. We take it from the Bible. But yet, you know what? Your website doesn't indicate that. Your preaching does, but your website doesn't. That's organic traffic. When you can take all those marriage, parenting, addictions, grief, counseling, faith, all kinds of felt need traffic and topics, you can actually optimize your website so it can be found organically. And it takes some work, but once you do it, it's the gift that keeps on giving, because traffic will just start coming over and over and over again. Bart, you know churches that have they have blog posts that actually have those blog posts have more traffic to them than the homepage of the website.
Yeah, I'll give you an example. Chase Oaks Church in Plano, Texas. It's a multi-campus church, great church. We've been working with them for a number of years. And I crack up every time I meet with Jeff, their media guy. We go through their analytics. They have an article posted on their website, I think from about 3 or 4 years ago, called The Real History of the Easter Egg. One of their staff members wrote a blog post, because they blog very consistently, almost weekly, I think. This article from like 3 or 4 years ago is now like the #1 authoritative page on the entire World Wide Web on the history of the Easter egg. So every single month, they have people landing on this page to read about the history of the Easter egg. And of course, at Easter time, February, March, April, it just blows up. There's almost more traffic to that particular blog post than there is to their homepage of their website. Now, the caveat being there, Chase Oaks wouldn't say that they're the prime authority on the Easter egg, but Google has basically said, this is an article that people have found valuable and helpful. And as a result, when people are Googling that type of content, it keeps pushing that post to the top of the search results. Yeah. You as a church have things that you are an authority on. You are an authority on Jesus, on salvation, on hope. Jason mentioned things like, marriage and addiction and overcoming grief and anxiety, fear, these types of things. One of the best ways to build a rich content of organic, searchable content on your website is to blog your sermons. Now, we've got other videos on our channel, and we've got blog posts on our own blog about this, but I'm telling you, it's one of the biggest challenges that churches have is, how do we come up with regular, consistent content to post in a blog to have more, to get more organic traffic to our website? Guess what?
Yeah, one every week.
Blogging the sermon. Take that 3,000 or 4,000 word transcript of your pastor's sermon, edit that down to a 12 to 1,500 word blog post, a 5-minute read, and post that every single week. It's not going to provide instantaneous results. I think that's one thing that we need to make clear, is that organic traffic is a long, slow play, right? It's a slow cooker. It's not a microwave meal. It's a slow cooker. So it's going to take time for Google to really continue to crawl your website, to index the content, and to see you as an authority. But it's something that if you start today, it's like the man best. What did they say? The 2 best times to plant a tree are 20 years ago and today. Right. Yep. So plant the tree today. If you haven't been planting the tree of putting organic content on your website, searchable, crawlable, authoritative content on your website, start that today. Most website platforms, especially if you're on Squarespace or WordPress or Wix, they've already got built-in blog platforms right in the website. And most churches aren't actually using them. So get in there and use it.
Yep.
Okay. Have we said enough? Have we said enough on organic?
I think we have. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So one of the ways that you can get more new visitors to your website is by adding more content to get more organic traffic to your website. The second, let's talk about interruptive advertising. Jason, explain what interruptive is and how that helps a church get new visitors to their website.
Yeah, there's some really good platforms when it comes to interruptive ads. Why are they called interruptive? It's because people are doing things and you're interrupting them with your advertisement. So Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Google Display Network, those are 4 platforms, and there's more, that when you advertise in those platforms, you're interrupting people in a good way to say, hey, we have something to share with you that we think you'll find valuable. And you can run advertisements, of course, around Easter and Christmas and some of those staples, but you can also run advertisements around things to do this summer, right? And give them kind of a cool PDF that they can download for 50 things to do this summer with your kids. That's pretty cool. It's a gift to the community, right? You can advertise harvest festivals, conferences, sermon series. I love these platforms because it it's all geo-targeted, right? All around your campus or campuses, as you know, maybe. And then what you can do is you can build 4 or 5 or 6 different ads. You can have a video that plays and target the people that are in your community. And it generates a lot of awareness, impressions. That's really valuable. But more valuable than that, it generates clicks to your website, right? So that's a great conversion to get lots of awareness, lots of impressions, get some clicks. And then if you set it up properly, you can generate leads. This is fun. We talk a lot about adding value to somebody, right? So if they're seeing your ad and it's something free for them to download, you can create a lead generator campaign. So you collect their name and email by giving them a free gift. Maybe it's a PDF, maybe it's a quiz or an online course that you're offering. But those are great because you've just generated names and emails. Hello, that's people in your community that are now connected to you. So I'm a huge fan of doing interruptive campaigns. My favorite's probably Google Display Network. And here's why. As you probably know, Facebook is really tends to be more female dominated when it comes to clicks, and it tends to be older, which is great because we're still going after people.
Middle-aged, people like me and older.
People like you and me, that's right. But we're male, we're not female. But that's who Facebook tends to reach, and that's awesome. Google Display Network, though, typically reaches younger people, like 25 to like 35, 40-year-olds. And the split is really almost even, if not more males than females that click on those ads. So I love running both, right? And of course, you have Instagram in that. And so when you have those kind of things covered, it's beautiful. Another little trick, a lot of churches say, hey, Jason, we want to run some YouTube advertisement. I'm like, awesome. We're not going to use YouTube. Like, what? Wait, that's what we want to do. Like, no, it's okay. You're going to take your video that you want to have and you're going to upload it to YouTube. And then we're going to run that ad in the Google Display Network. What's the Google Display Network? It's a network of websites that say, hey, Google, yeah, display an ad on our website. So Google says, awesome. I've got an advertiser who wants to display an ad on your website. Perfect example, ESPN. I go to ESPN to kind of learn about sports, fantasy football. I'm totally in. So I go to ESPN a lot. If you go to ESPN, you're going to see ads from like Nissan or Target or something like that. That's the display network. And you can advertise on those websites. What's really, really cool is if you upload a video to the display network, almost 90% of the impressions are going to come inside of YouTube, not just other websites. That's what's brilliant about it. Display network's more cost effective. And so you, instead of going straight to YouTube, advertising YouTube, go with the display network and it'll show in YouTube. Love it. I love interruptive campaigns for all churches all the time because it's really cost effective. You've got to build it into your budget, but it's a great way to supplement. It's not the only way to grow, but it's one of the best ways to grow your church, get more exposure, get more engagement.
Yeah, just a brief side note on the interruptive, especially as it relates to video, is that our experience has been that video ads tend to outperform static ads on platforms like Facebook, Instagram, Google Display Network. These days, Instagram, traditionally, we have not seen a whole lot of click traffic from Instagram ads. But now Instagram, if you're an Instagram user, you've probably noticed this, you're seeing more and more ads in Instagram stories and more ads in Instagram Reels. And as a result of that, we're starting to see better performing video ads in the Instagram platform, which tends to be more the audience that most of our churches are really trying to reach. The other thing that I would note about the videos running YouTube ads through Google Display versus running YouTube ads through YouTube, this is purely anecdotal, and I don't have hard evidence, and I don't know if Google would give us the answer to this. But when we run ads straight in YouTube, we get pretty low click-through rates or compared to the click-through rates that we get when we run them in Google Display. My suspicion, although I can't prove this, and if somebody knows, send me an email and you can correct me on this, but my suspicion is that when we run ads directly through YouTube, that the vast majority of those impressions are being made on smart TVs where there is no click option. Now, my smart TV now, just recently, if I'm watching something on YouTube, there's a little button I can click that says send to phone.
Yeah.
So if I'm watching an ad, I can use my remote control from my smart TV to send a link to my phone if I'm logged into my account. But by and large, when you're watching a YouTube video and you see an ad, you can't just walk up to the screen and boop, push the button and click the ad. Whereas when we run ads in Google Display, we tend to have a much higher click-through rate. My thought process is that those ads are going to the YouTube app on phones, where people can actually click. So interruptive ads, hey, the phone is it, right? Back in the day, and there's still a use for this in some places, our primary way of advertising was to print postcards and mail them to people's mailboxes. And that's how we delivered impressions for our church to people in our community. Today, we can deliver for a fraction of the cost, multiple ads right into the palm of someone's hand on their mobile device, on the apps that they're already on. You talked about Google Display Network pushing ads to websites like ESPN. If you use any apps that have ads in them, those are by and large pushed through the Google Display Network. So if you play games and you see ads, or you use a podcast app that has ads, those are typically coming through the Google Display Network.
Yeah, they're really, really good to get clicks from all kinds of people. Yeah, I love the Display Network.
Okay. 2 ways of getting new visitor traffic to your website: organic, interruptive. Let's talk for a minute about what people refer to as either pay per click or cost per click advertising. Let's talk specifically about Google search.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk about Google search because I think it's the second best way to grow your church. What's the first? Your own people.
Personal invitation.
Personal invitation. If you're not pouring into your own people to invite and bring friends to church or events at your church or whatnot, you're totally missing out. That's your best number one resource. All those marketing minions sitting in your chairs, they're awesome. Use them. The second best way would be somebody who's searching for a church, right? I mean, you go to Google and you type in churches near me. What am I looking for? I'm looking for a church, right? I call that low-hanging fruit. And so if you're not showing up in that search result, so if you haven't done this, take out your phone, go to your computer, type in churches near me, hit enter. What are you going to find? You're likely going to, maybe you'll find an ad at the top, right? It'll say ad and it'll be like a church. Right below that is going to be the Google local pack. Okay, awesome. We can talk about that. But below that's all the organic traffic. And sometimes at the bottom of the page will be more ads. Just kind of depends. Google puts them at the top of the page, put them at the bottom of the page. Sometimes Google puts them inside the Google local pack, an ad, right? So if I'm typing in churches near me and I live like a mile or 2 miles from your church, I may or may not be in that local pack. I may or may not even be on the organic searches. Oh, how tragic, because I'm literally only a couple of miles away from your church. I'm not showing up. You can spend some money, not a lot of money. You can spend $100, $50, $200, $500 a month and run paid advertisements in Google so that you show up there when somebody's searching for, which is the most common phrase, churches near me, right? Anything near me, restaurants, grocery stores, ballparks, bars, whatever it is, churches near me. Great keyword to go after. And it's low-hanging fruit. It's people who are looking for a church. They may or may not be Christians. I often teach this. I'm like, who's doing that? Who's searching? Probably somebody who moved to the area. Or maybe they're kind of done with their old church. Maybe they haven't been to church in a long, long, long time. They're de-churched or unchurched. Maybe it was a divorce situation, right? She's staying at this, I got to go find a new church kind of a thing. We don't know why, but they're searching for a church. Wouldn't you want to be like right there for them to click? I also get this, Jason, I never click on those ads. Well, you might not, but Google makes about $100 billion a year in advertisements. 100 billion, that's with a B, $1 billion a year in advertising, people clicking on ads. Somebody's clicking on those ads, and it's not a whole bunch of bots. And so if that's happening, you absolutely want to make sure you are surrounded by people who are looking for a church and they're finding your church. It's a great way to advertise. Pay per click. It's awesome.
I started in ministry a little over 20 years ago, and I can still remember every year going through our annual church budget, in particularly the marketing area, because I had a role in our church marketing. And one of our largest expenses every year was a Yellow Pages ad. 20 years ago, 30 years ago, if you were a church that wanted to reach people in your community, you paid through the nose for a page in the Yellow Pages. Now, some of you are hearing this and you don't even know what it is, or maybe your primary experience with a Yellow Pages is like to use it as a doorstop. Or I can remember going over to my grandmother's as a little kid, and she didn't have booster seats. So, in order to sit at the dinner table, we'd have to sit on the Yellow Pages so we could, be tall enough to hit the table. But seriously, 20, 25, 30 years ago, if you were a church interested in reaching people in your community, you had to have a Yellow Pages ad. The modern day version, the 2022 version of the Yellow Pages ad is Google search.
It's been there for a while.
You have to put some money in your budget every year for Google search. Even if you're not doing it 12 months a year, there are maybe times or seasons that you need to do it. I just had a call yesterday with a church that's a brand new church plant. They're launching this fall. And I told them, for the first 3 to 6 months, you've got to have search ads in Google, because unless I Google your church by name, you're not showing up. If I Google your search by name, your website will show up at the top. But if I don't know your church name and I'm just looking for a church in the city or church in your community, you're never going to show up. But if you are advertising, you will show up. So make sure that you got some money in your budget every year for Google search ads. And Jason and I can coach you on the best ways to do that. Make sure that you reach out to us. You can set an appointment with us and we can talk you through the best ways of doing that.
But I'll also say this too. I have had a church recently that says, Google's evil. We don't want to ever deal with Google. Okay. You might think Google's evil. Maybe they are. But go look at your analytics. Just go look at your analytics on the source of how people found you. You're going to find direct. That means they typed you in directly, right? They literally typed in they bookmarked your website direct. Okay. You might have some other like Facebook, or your email might bring some. I guarantee you, Google's going to be like at least number 1 or number 2. You're going to find DuckDuckGo. You're going to find Bing, Yahoo, way down the list. We're talking like in the single digits. Google's going to be, if you're a big site, you might have hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of searches from Google. 92% of the marketplaces uses Google. That's why we talk about it. So Google might be evil. You may not want to, you just cringe at the idea of giving money to Google, but you're going after people. You're going after people who may not know Jesus. You're going after people who are looking for a church. They use Google. So you just kind of have to swallow that and go, yeah, we got to apply some money towards Google. I'm telling you, it's going to be what you have to do. But that could lead into the next one that you're going to talk about, Bart.
Yeah, because, there are opportunities for us to give money to Google so that Google can provide ads and clicks of new visitors to our website, so that we can engage with more people that are in our community that we don't yet know. But there's also a way for us to get something back from Google, and it is something called the Google Grant. Now, before I let you peel this thing apart and explain how to use it, I'm just going to say the Google Grant is something a lot of churches have heard about. There's a lot of misunderstanding about what it is. Yep. It is not a grant. They use the term grant, but it's not technically a grant. Typically, when nonprofits and churches think about grants, they think about applying for something and somebody writing them a check or sending them money. It's in-kind donation from Google for nonprofits, which includes churches that are 501c3 status. And with that little caveat, I'll let you kind of explain what the Google Grant is and the best uses for the Google Grant.
I love the Google Ad Grant. I love Google and I hate Google. Okay, I'm just to be honest with you. It's a love-hate relationship with me and Google. But this Google Ad Grant really is a cool gift, right? $10,000 a month. $10,000 a month. So you literally can increase your marketing budget by $120,000 this year. How? Utilizing the Google Ad Grant. It's literally a AdWords platform. Just like if you're spending money with Google, the only difference is your credit card's not on file. They're not taking any money from you. They allow you to just spend money, spin up ads, go for it, get traffic to your website, doesn't cost you a dime. Okay, so you can do that, and it's really fantastic to generate more traffic to your website. What kind of traffic would you want to generate to your website from the Google Ad Grant? Well, there's a couple kinds.
Is that your dog?
That's my dog. Sorry about that. There's a couple kinds of traffic that you can get to your website from the Google Ad Grant. We just talked about local traffic, people looking for a church. It's actually okay for that. It's not bad, but there's some rules that Google has. It only allows about 10% impression share. So that traffic is a little light. What I love to use the Google Ad Grant for is online church, because people will type in like online church and they're looking for churches online. Still a very popular thing here today in 2022. We've been in COVID for going on, 2.5 years or so. People are still searching for an online church. So the grant can deliver traffic that way. The other one that's really, really big and really, really popular is the felt needs that we've been talking about. People searching for marriage and parenting and addictions and grief, all those felt need searches we just talked about. The Ad Grant is phenomenal at reaching people who are searching for those keywords, and it can drive traffic to your website. A question I always get from churches when we talk about the Ad Grant: why does Google do this? What's their motive? Well, we think this is what their motive is. Number one, it's a tax write-off. Okay, but they're a $130 billion company. How much tax write-off do they need? Well, some. So it's a tax write-off. It's a gift from Google to nonprofits. But here's really, I think, why they do it. They want more competition in Google search and Google paid ads. They want you advertising. Here's the reality. If, let's say, you have a care ministry and you have some pastors on staff that are pastoral, right? And so they love to meet with people in the congregation and help somebody through like a marriage issue, right?
Counseling type stuff, right? Marriage counseling.
Yep. Yeah. So you use the Google Ad Grant and you advertise marital counseling and you throw that ad up there. Well, guess what you just did? You created competition, because there are definitely married counselors in your area that do that for a living, and they're willing to spend money. So they might spend $2 or $3 for that one click. Well, guess what happens? If you throw an ad up there, you just create more competition. The cost went up. So the cost per click went up. So no longer is it $2 or $3. It's now $4 or $5 for that click. Google makes real money by giving you fake money. They're brilliant. Okay. And so I love to talk about that with churches, because it's all about utilizing Google to drive traffic to your website. The question then becomes, how do we build and optimize our website so that we're attractive for these keywords? We have no content on our website about all these felt needs you just mentioned about, Jason. We have a solution. We actually have landing pages that you can utilize that have all these, these felt need topics. More about that. There's a lot on our website about that, but it's the Google Ad Grant. It's $120,000 a year you can add to your marketing budget to drive all kinds of traffic to your website, of which it's a funnel. You start with a whole bunch of ads and impressions out there. From there, you get some people that click, and it could be a lot. It could be 1,000 or 2,000 clicks. From there, you're going to get some people who actually take the next step and engage. But just like anything else, if you run interruptive, you have organic, you do a paid campaign, the Google Ad Grant's the same thing. It's about reaching a lot of people to get clicks, to get conversions, to grow your church. So
you got it, man. Google Ad Grant is one of those things that just doesn't make sense to not have. We do offer a Google Ad Grant management service. So we help churches acquire it, and then we help them manage it for a fee. And you talked about the landing pages, the felt need landing pages. We have dozens and dozens and dozens of them on different topics. Yep. And we actually, for churches that hire us to manage their Google Ad Grant, if they don't have the content on their website to match up with all these keywords, we basically launch a version of these landing pages for your church, branded to your church, and let you use them. And you can even use them internally if you want to share them internally. It's not just for the Ad Grant. So
it's over 120 pages. I mean, it's a lot of content.
But here's the thing, and I think I want to emphasize this a little bit more, because as a pastor, as a church planter myself, as a person who has a real heart for evangelism and reaching people who are far from God, You talked about low-hanging fruit. The low-hanging fruit is those ring 2 people in your community who are Googling church near me, churches near me. Most of the time, those are people who have some spiritual interest or some spiritual background. They might be believers, they might not, but they're already moving along the journey. The people who are the furthest out, those ring 3 people, they're trying to DIY their life problems, and they're trying to do it on Google and on YouTube. And so we want to make sure that your church shows up in those searches, and the Google Ad Grant is the best way to do it. There are, depending on the density of your community, tens, hundreds, or thousands of people right now in your neighborhood who are Googling how to fix my marriage. Your church is not showing up, but you might offer re-engage or some sort of marriage support ministry. There are people trying to overcome addiction, and maybe you offer Celebrate Recovery or some type of ministry that can connect people with others who could help them. If you have those ministries and you're not using the Google Ad Grant to drive more traffic to your website to connect with those people who have those needs, you're missing out on an incredible opportunity to really minister to the least of these in your community, the people that God has a broken heart for, that you have a broken heart for, and that unless you do this, it's going to be really difficult to find other ways to intersect with those people because they're doing these searches in the privacy of their home or on their phone, and they're not openly coming out and saying, I need help with my marriage. They're Googling it, and they're Googling it because they think it's private, because they think it's safe. But you can show up there and you can be a light for those people in their lives. So there's my evangelistic bent on this, Jason.
Well, yeah. And if you look at, just take a look at your home, look at your church, go look at those pages that you've built around those care ministries or whatnot. It's probably a brochure about that ministry that's for your own people. It's never going to show up organically. You don't have it optimized, right? Who's getting there? People in your church. So we're expecting people to come to our church and then they can get the help. That's not, that's an okay model, and that model is effective at some point. But what if we went to them? What if we reached them? Like Bart said, they're searching. What if we reached them? They got to the page and it wasn't, hey, welcome to Grief Share. We meet Wednesdays at 7 p.m. in room B152. Like, I probably wouldn't go there if I was not a part of your community. But if you actually had content to help me, to minister to me, like how to overcome grief, and here's some steps, and here's some resources, here's a video of somebody that went through it and they've come out on the other side, and here's maybe a sermon around it. Now you're providing value, right? Your website is being optimized to minister to people who are not even a part of your church. How are they going to find that? One of the best ways is the Google Ad Grant.
Well said. We're going to wrap up this episode. It probably went a little longer than I was anticipating, but hopefully for our viewers, our listeners, it was very helpful. For those of you who are watching on YouTube, I just have to point this out because you've probably been wondering what is on Jason's shirt. Jason has an Arizona State University logo on his shirt. That is not where he went. That's not where he went to university, but it is where his son is going to university, and most of his paycheck every month. So we just wanted to, I just wanted to acknowledge that because it's got like a pitchfork, right? Because they are the Sun Devils, right? Sun Devils. So,
I'm a proud Sun Devil because my son goes there.
Yeah, we don't hold that against you. But I just wanted to point that out. If you're listening to this, you didn't even notice. Now you know. So you can. I don't know if that means anything to anyone, but I just wanted to point that out. Hey, we thank you for hanging out with us. If you've made it all the way to the end of this podcast, congratulations. It was a doozy. We packed a lot of content into this little window of time here. If you haven't subscribed, where you consume the content, whether that's on our YouTube channel or the podcast app of your choice, make sure that you subscribe so you don't miss any episodes. Make sure that you give us some feedback. A rating and a review would really help us know what we're hitting on, what's working well for you. And if you have any ideas about things that we could do in this podcast that would make it more beneficial for you and your church, let us know that. And also, when you do leave ratings and reviews, it helps more people find the podcast. If you share it on social media, or if you want to share it with your friends or colleagues via email, that would be awesome too. We're just looking to be able to help more and more churches throughout not just the United States and Canada, but across the world, because most of these principles are pretty universal. So thanks again for tuning in. If you need anything from Jason and me, click to our website, missionalmarketing.com, follow the contact us link, and you can schedule an appointment with one of us, and we can do a deeper dive into any of the topics that we shared on the podcast today. Jason, good to see you again.
Good to see you, Bart.
And farewell.